Samuel Alito has identified himself with the same people who raided the Capitol on January 6th and is now going to be presiding over court cases that have deep implications over the participants of that rally. In the Senate, we have gavels. There should be subpoenas going out. There should be active investigations that are happening.
Congressional Democrats, like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, are calling for investigations following a New York Times report revealing that Justice Samuel Alito flew yet another flag in front of his home that is affiliated with Donald Trump and the far right, but more importantly, that's affiliated with supporting individuals who participated on January 6th. Now, the story's a little complicated, so bear with me. Here's the flag, which was on display at Alito's beach house in 2023. Okay, it's a flag that has a pine tree. The flag displays a tree with the text, "An appeal to heaven." It's known as the pine tree flag because of the fact that it has a pine tree. Now, what does the flag mean? If you're not familiar with it, don't worry, I'll give you the details. The flag actually dates back to the Revolutionary War. Since its creation during the American Revolution, the flag has carried a message of defiance. The phrase "appeal to heaven" comes from the 17th century philosopher John Locke, who wrote of a responsibility to rebel, even use violence, to overthrow unjust rule. Now, the flag fell out of popular culture for a while, but as you can see, it recently was revived. It was specifically revived by Dutch Sheets, which is not a high thread count, bed dressing. Dutch Sheets is an actual person, a right-wing author and speaker who claimed the flag as a symbol for a conservative takeover of America. Now, he wrote back in 2015 in a book titled "An Appeal to Heaven." "Rally to the flag. God has resurrected it for such a time as this. Wave it outwardly, wear it inwardly. Appeal to heaven daily for a spiritual revolution that will knock out the Goliaths of our day." And before long, the movement found its way all the way over to MAGA and supporters of Donald Trump. When Trump lost, Sheets and a team of others formed an instant ad hoc religious arm of the Stop the Steal campaign, blitzing swing state megachurches, broadcasting the services at each stop and drawing hundreds of thousands of viewers. Now, the pine tree flag was also spotted among the January 6 rioters. We have some examples. If you take a look at this picture, we highlighted or circled in red one of the pine tree flags that were seen among the rioters. There's another image. This one's a little more difficult to see. It's all the way over on the right-hand side. You see the very tip of that pine tree. Now, last October, Sheets led a prayer session in tribute to the Supreme Court while citing the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The majority decision was, by the way, written by Alito in that case, as Sheets also noted. "We have reached another phase in the process of shifting the Supreme Court," he announced. "Through the justices," he said, "God's intent for institutions of government can now be fulfilled." And by the way, both dark money donor Leonard Leo and House Speaker Mike Johnson have also flown the flag.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
So why does AOC and other congressional Democrats want an investigation into Alito? Well, because if he's gonna be overseeing or passing down decisions on cases related to Donald Trump's fake elector scheme, the January 6 riots, well, he very clearly has a strong bias, a bias strong enough that he's proudly flying it before his beach home. And so the argument is that he should recuse himself given the fact that he's brazenly displaying that bias as we speak. Cenk.
Yeah, so two different issues here. What should happen to Alito and what is his motivation? So in terms of his motivation, he's a Christian nationalist, always has been. And he doesn't really hide it. He is a religious fundamentalist. And my guess, now this part is a guess. My guess is if you said to Alito, you're going to be the deciding vote, we're gonna burn the US Constitution and make this a Christian theocracy. just Christians rule and all your biblical interpretations become the law, that he would do that in a flat second. He has no respect for this country. He has no respect for our secular constitution. Look, it's one thing when someone who is not educated, doesn't know the history of America and the history of the Constitution. But Alito is very well educated. He knows that America was one of the first secular countries ever, if not the first. He knows that they said not to establish a religion, but nevertheless, he tries to establish a religion in every decision that he can that's relevant to religion. So he always votes, and it's not like he's neutral either to Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, etc. No, always Christianity, Christianity, Christianity. My religion must rule your religion. So the fact that he's in favor of this flag, I mean, I appreciate the honesty in a sense. It's the least surprising thing ever. I'm just not outraged in the way that people in mainstream news are, because I already knew this. This was obvious in everything that he did. It's obvious in his decisions. So they always act like flabbergasted, like, oh, could Sam Alito be a Christian nationalist who was in favor of January 6th? Yeah, of course he is, right? Now, on the other hand, I'm the fairest man in America. So does that mean he should be off the Supreme Court? No. There's tons of Christian nationalists in this country. They don't understand the Constitution. They don't like the Constitution, right? But nevertheless, they're American citizens and they get to go through the process. And he went through the process and he's on the court. Should he recuse himself from the January 6th cases? Even that one I think is a close call.
Interesting.
And you might be surprised by that, but so for me, Clarence Thomas is not a close call. Ginny Thomas, his wife, was part of the planning of January 6th. No, you have to recuse yourself. Your wife was personally involved in the case. That's crazy, right? In the case of Alito, it's a couple of flags that show that he supports the couple of flags that also happen to be on carried in January 6th. Okay, so some degree of sympathy for January 6th, or maybe a ton of sympathy, loves January 6th. But we're guessing, and it's just flags. And am I surprised that he's in favor of January 6th? No. By the way, are there many other justices who are opposed to January 6th? Yes. Now, being opposed to January 6th, I don't think is a bias. Being in favor of January 6th, is that a bias? So that's why I'm not sure. And so that's why I think that him recusing himself is not even necessarily an open shut question in this case.
That is, yeah, you know what, you make a good point, and I think that's very fair. I mean, I didn't consider the fact that obviously there's gonna be Supreme Court justices who are vehemently against what happened on January 6th, not interested in providing cover for them. And so the idea that they recuse themselves based on their personal beliefs would be unfair, right? Now, yesterday, Democratic Representative Steve Cohen introduced a resolution to censure Alito over the Stop the Steal flag that was displayed in front of his home in 2021. Cohen stated that Alito continues to participate in litigation directly related to the 2020 election and the insurrection in direct violation of the federal recusal statute and the Supreme Court's own ethics rules. Alito should be censured for flagrant breaches of the law and court rules, and he must recuse himself from all other 2020 election and January 6th related litigation. And I'm curious what you think about that argument by Steve Cohen, Cenk.
So first of all, I like that he's making the argument, and you might be thinking, "What? Well, you just told me you're mixed on it, right?" Yeah, but he's a Democrat. I'm in this case a journalist who's trying to tell you what's real and what's not real, right? And so Steve Cohen is a partisan, and would the Republicans do likewise? They do much worse. They would have congressional hearings nonstop to get Alito and Thomas off the Supreme Court. They'd probably win. I mean, they've done, the obstruction the Republicans have done on the Supreme Court and the stacking of it has been amazing politically, right? And by the way, I give them credit for some of it because those are amazing political moves. They at least fight for their side. Our side is filled with pathetic weaklings who never fight for us. So when I see Steve Cohen fighting for his side, I respect it. I don't know that I would agree with him if I was the one making the decision, but I would hear out both sides. I think it's a close case.
And for those who are wondering, okay, well, is there litigation that would that Alito would have a say in. Well, Alito is taking part in 2 pending Supreme Court cases associated with January 6th. Whether Trump has immunity from prosecution for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results, and whether a certain obstruction charge can be used against rioters. He also participated in the court's unanimous ruling that states can't bar Trump from the ballot using the insurrection clause that was added to the Constitution after the Civil War. And so he is involved in some of these cases, and so far we have a few Democrats who are trying to pressure him to recuse himself. He's not going to give into that pressure. If anything, maybe Chief Justice John Roberts would have a say in this, but so far Alito plans on being part of the litigation and is moving forward. So that's where we are right now. And you're right, Cenk. Every single Supreme Court justice obviously has a political bent. That's the reason why in every election cycle, you'll hear Democrats say, oh, we know you don't like the Democratic candidate, but think about the Supreme Court, think about the Supreme Court. And it's because you want a Democrat who's gonna be able to appoint Supreme Court justices rather than a Republican, and vice versa. So we all know that all these judges have their own political views, and sometimes those political views might inform the decisions they make in these rulings.
Yeah, just last things on that. First of all, Justice Roberts is never going to ask Alito to recuse himself. If he didn't ask Thomas to recuse himself when his wife is one day a potential defendant, I mean, he's never, ever, ever going to do that. He will protect these Supreme Court justices no matter how unfair it is. But to your point, one of our members, Kara, wrote in, Alito shouldn't be on the Supreme Court, not because of his beliefs, but because he's willing to put his beliefs above the law and the Constitution. But Kara, much love and respect, but like Anna just said, they kind of all are. Let's be honest. Look, so I love Roe v. Wade as legislation, and I wish the Democrats had passed it. They had many opportunities. It drives me crazy that they didn't. I think it'd be perfect legislation. I think it was decided wrong as a constitutional law issue. So do you ever see anyone on the Supreme Court, left or right, Republican or Democrat, say what I just said, which is, even though I really, really want this thing to be law, constitutionally, I don't think it's right. You almost never see that. So whether they're right wing or left wing, they're almost all deciding the issues based on their politics, not their actual legal principles.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.